Okay. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of Sunday Samvaad. And we are glad to welcome Mr. Abhishek Patane, our dear alumni from Water Policy and Governance. So before that, before introducing Mr. Abhishek, I would like to introduce the current initiative, that is Sunday Samvaad. So Sunday Samvad is an alumni connect vertical of MyTISS. So MyTISS is a students-led media platform where we tend to collaborate with students of TISS and their activities and showcase on a common open platform. So Sunday Samvad, as I said, is an alumni connect vertical where we connect with alumni from diverse work areas and ask them to share their professional journey with TISS students and the social science fraternity, so that students can envisage their career with a guided perspective. And continuing these meets, alumni meets on Sundays, we are glad to welcome Mr. Abhishek Patane to our session on development and governance via WASH programs, that is water, sanitation, and hygiene programs. Uh, we are also very, uh, you know, uh, thankful to Mr. Abhishek that he has been uh, confirmed his presence while in a very short period of time. Otherwise, it takes very much a month or so to plan a session, but his dynamic personality has been shown. And when we talk about Mr. Abhishek's professional work, so he passed out from water policy and governance under the school of Tata Trust. He had an ardent interest in water policies. He chose the course, and since the past 3 years or more, he has been very professionally engaged with Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, and currently is a consultant at Tata Trust. He joined as a fellow in the Ministry of Drinking Water, where he was a Tata Trust fellow, and initially he worked in two districts of Maharashtra, and later he was promoted to the Central Secretariat. So kind of he was working at an all India level. So from micro to the macro level, he did his work for the initial years. Then currently he is a consultant program associate with Tata Trusts, where he anchors various integrated WASH initiatives. And not to stretch more on his professional experiences, but during our discussion, uh, I was very much surprised to talk with him, in the sense that from community engagement to a secretary, ministerial level secretary engagement, he has had a very unique experience from, as I again say, micro to the macro levels of development and governance. So that is why we planned this topic. And when we talk about his hobbies, he likes to read mostly biographies. He also has a kind of, I also learned a new vocabulary called numismatics, where he has he collects and studies coins, and he even follows stock market. As I said, a dynamic personality to have with us. And thank you so much, sir, uh, for your presence. And we are looking forward to your very interesting session. In the session, sir would cover initially the roles and functions he has had in his professional journey, as well as the projects undertaken. At the same time, he would also talk about the challenges he has faced and people who are planning to work with or in WASH programs. They would face maybe the challenges, and then he would be talking about the skills that are required while you are working for WASH programs or in and around WASH programs. And lastly, he would be discussing about how and what knowledge that he received in TISS, or that we receive in TISS, and the values that we imbibe in TISS can be channelized and negotiated while we are working in the area of WASH, and when we are working with the government as well as with the community, how we can channelize all these values of the community, of the organization, of the government, and of our personal own values. So all this discussion is here, and with your permission, sir, we can begin.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dadich, for such a comprehensive introduction and setting the context. And thanks all for joining. So as Dadich mentioned, I would take you through the same structure, and I will like to stick to the experiences more than the approaches and theoretical part, which anyways you will be learning during the course of your time at TISS or any other institute that you are from. So beginning with the roles and functions. So as Dadich told, I began my career as a consultant with the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, which was a part of fellowship called as Zila Swachh Bharat Prerak, which some of you must be knowing about it. And it was a kind of collaboration between the ministry and the Tata Trusts. The idea was to deploy WASH professionals or professionals at district level who will take lead in design and implementation of Swachh Bharat mission. Because the mission, Swachh Bharat mission, as we know, was the flagship mission of India for the first 5 years. And for that, they needed to expedite the mission's implementation. So that's how the journey started with the campus placement. And then I was posted in Sindhudurg and Nanded districts, very extreme districts within the same state. One having the highest number of target in terms of toilet construction and usage of toilets, and second was was, let's say, it was declared as the cleanest district of India. So very diverse experience I got while working with the Gram Panchayat at the block level Panchayat Samiti, or at the district level working with the CEO and the collector. So that was a unique experience. So it gave me a experiential ground to work on the ideas or the values and all the experiences, experiential training, and the skill sets that we acquire at TISS. And it was my first of its kind experience. So one unique thought about this experience was that it was working within the government system. Because usually when we work in organizations, especially development organizations or NGOs, we find that it is very tough to, deal with or maybe interface with the government system in terms of getting permissions or doing a kind of joint program with the government. So it gave me a very different perspective, because at TISS we do our dissertation theses and we do a lot of research work and read a lot of literature on how government functions, what are the impacts of the governance or different programs of the government that are happening. And I was very lucky to get to know the perspective how the governance ecosystem uh, sees all the development issues and how do they implement it. Because even as a data collector or a researcher, as a student, when we, I think so you all must have done it or might have to do it as a part of your dissertation work. Um, you might have to collect some data through interviews from the government representatives, and you'll find that they are very much reluctant to share data. So those things I could experience why the system is like that, and the way they think and way the style of their work. So that was my first hand experience working with the government. And then after working there, I was then transferred to the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation in New Delhi, where I had to work on specifically on the financial management part for all the state. So the fund which is disbursed to all the states, and there are some disbursement linked indicators for that fund to be released. Like on every milestone of achievement of, let's say, this much percentage of coverage of toilets, this much amount of proportion of fund is to be released to the state. So that was my work, to monitor that and help the secretariat, the secretary and joint secretaries, and the cabinet minister, office of cabinet minister, for knowledge management and the overall planning and implementation of Swachh Bharat over there. So once you work at the ministry, even though you have a specific task, then you have to do a many different works, which may or may not be part of your job profile. So that's there, and it was a kind of very different experience as compared to what Dadich just wanted to check. I am audible, right?
Yes, yes, you're audible, sir.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So at the ministry, the macro level perspective was quite different, because it is like whatever you plan, whatever you think, you have to think for an entire country, which is a very big geographical entity. Such a vast geographies we have, such huge diversities in terms of agroclimatic conditions, culture, etc. That we all know. So from working at district level and then at the ministry, these were two extremes, and at both the levels, I really remembered whatever I learned at TISS. And these were the roles in a nutshell. I won't go into details, but I would definitely like to share something about the governance aspect. And as I move on, I would stick to the wash aspect, because see, uh, whatever you whatever you discuss on governance, it is going to be cross-cutting for all the themes, whether it may be wash, education, or for that matter, any, if you are taking up any course at this. So I will talk about those generic components, but at the same time, I will like to give examples of wash which I have closely experienced. So when you work at I'll start from the bottom, because we love to talk about bottom up approach at TISS also. So when you work at gram panchayats, it, it's there's a lot of pressure over there, because I will just explain you the structure, which many of us know what it is. So at center, you have a very elaborate ecosystem. You have several departments, ministries, portfolios to deal with different issues. Okay. Then same goes with the state level and at district level. You have ICDS department, you have education department, you have water sanitation department, rural development department. So these departments, the line departments, are similar till district level, or for that matter till taluka or block level in India. What happens at gram panchayat level, we all know that there is only one sachiv or gram sevak who is present there, who represents the bureaucracy. Okay, and from revenue part, we have on that side we have a patwari or talati. So we have elaborate system. We talk about a lot about decentralization, especially after 94th, 93rd amendment. But at the same time, to effectuate that decentralization, we only have one bureaucratic representative at the bottom. Okay, so from that angle, when we are delivering any development program, whether it may be Swachh Bharat or any other program, what that person can do. So just imagine the immense amount of pressure that person must be undergoing. So we hear a lot of stories that government, especially in villages, when we talk about a gram panchayat is not functioning well, they do not know about the schemes, from where to leverage the funds, how to implement it. So what happens there is, and also we find in India there are very few success stories, like these are the islands of success, we call them, because those successes are not getting scaled up across India. So what we find that we have elaborate departments, structures in place in terms of governance, but we have only one person, or rather 2% if we also consider the executive at village level, who is Mukhia or the Sarpanch, who are, generally taking the leadership role or in terms of planning and decision making. And everything falls upon them. So what I realized in Swachh Bharat mission, I was lucky because I was working on a flagship program of India. And what happens when you are working on a flagship program from top to bottom, like from executive, like Prime Minister and Council of Ministers at center, CM and Council of Ministers at state, district level also Sabhapati and the district administration, and they all have a cascading pressure on achieving certain flagship programs goals or outputs. So similarly, for in case of Swachh Bharat mission, that was the prime most agenda. So what that person at the bottom, especially the Mukhia or the Gram Sevak, will do is he has only two to, let's say, 3 to 5 at the max priorities that he can deliver in a given year. So he just thinks in that perspective. Okay, there are n number of schemes that government of India sanctions every year, but he only works on maybe on those priority schemes which the collector asks him to do or the administration puts a pressure on. And that from where that pressure is coming from, it's coming from the executive, because that is how the any given government at the present time, they decide these are the priorities, set of priorities for India or for any given geographical unit. So same things happen this next 5 years. We are now moving forward on Jal Jeevan Mission, which is another flagship mission of India, where we intend to increase India's tap water, household level tap water connectivity to 100%. At the reference point, it is 18% at the beginning. As we start the mission in 2019, it began, and now in next 5 years, we plan to do the coverage 100% for India. So these are very, very ambitious programs, and this is how it works. So we have comprehensive setups at center, state, district, and then it's like a funnel. At the bottom, you have a very less human resource available. So planning is something which is missing, and there are many other aspects you can imagine because of lack of human resource. So this is the thing. And then let's talk about center, something about between center and state. So water and sanitation, as we all know, that it is a state subject. So center has no say in much say in terms of decision making when it comes to governance. So center just can design a guiding principle or a guideline for states what is to be done, a standard guideline, and states are the ones who decides how they want to expend that fund. But see, in case of programs like Swachh Bharat Mission or Jal Jeevan Mission, where India takes loan from World Bank, those loans are attached to some kind of conditions. So some kind of water reforms that happen. So that we have to adhere to, and that those if the states are again going to utilize the same fund, they also have to adhere to those kind of conditions. So what happens over here is when the fund is received by the central government and is disbursed to the state governments, so state governments also have their own priority. So by and large, they do follow what the central government prescribes them. But what happens if there is X ruling party in the center, and if there is a Y ruling party, another ruling party in the state, there might be some clashes. Contrary, you can also find examples where there are different ruling parties as state and center, but still things are good, like they are adhering to the central government's guidelines. So this is how it happens, especially in cases, in topics where the subject is a state subject. So there is always a clash, and always kind of center tries to see that the highest burden state gets the highest amount of share. In India's case, the highest popular states usually get the most amount of budgetary allocation, or on the basis of baseline survey, whatever India does. Now, these are some of the governance related approaches I just wanted to shed some light. These are not kind of hard and fast perspectives or theoretical perspectives that we learn. Anyways, that you will be learning. But these are some generic perspectives that I thought I should share, which I found them to be very critical. At central level, I would just like to talk a bit more about it, because we all are very inquisitive about what happens at the center, how the planning happens. So this is again applicable to all the themes irrespective of WASH, but again, few examples of WASH I would like to give. So when Swachh Bharat started, it started as a, let's say, as an advancement of Nirmal Bharat Abhiyan, which you might have heard about, wherein President used to give Nirmal Gram Puraskar few years ago during the previous government. So in Swachh Bharat, we realized that building toilets, constructing toilets is not the only solution, because since 1983-86, when the first central level sanitation program started, we have been going on constructing toilets. We thought that the coverage was an issue. We are not covering people or providing people with sanitation units. But then later on, by the time Nirmal Bharat Abhiyan came in early 2000s, we realized that along with toilet, we need to also trigger demand for toilets, make people realize what is the importance of toilets. So I won't again go into the science part of it, because anyways you can just you all know why it is important, like sanitation is important. Similarly, for any program, such things, like we all know what is the impact component of it. You will learn anyways in the foundation courses. But in such missions, so especially in case of sanitation missions in India, we realize the behavior is also important. But that behavior change part was never, prioritized as such, which was kind of distinctive feature in Swachh Bharat mission. And how did it start? In 2012, when Nirmal Bharat was about to end, they claimed that India's toilet coverage was beyond 80%. And then census came, and 2011 census report says it is around it is below 30%. And that is how, it was a starting point for Swachh Bharat mission. We have to rethink our approach, what we are doing, where we are going wrong. And in Swachh Bharat mission, then they put a lot of weightage on behavioral change. Now, why I'm talking about this is because behavioral change is kind of a buzzword across all the portfolios in ministries. Now, every other program government brings in, they talk about behavioral change. And that is rightly so, because we have been more focused on the technical or the infrastructure perspective. Like, just when government has been provider for all these years, we have been providing subsidies to the communities. And that was the approach. Like, you provide the subsidy, and then they might, come out of their well-being would improve or get intact. So that was the approach. But we realize that to, sustain the change that you want to make, the positive change you want to make in the communities, you need to also, create demand, because the demand it should be demanded by the people. People should realize that what the importance of that infrastructure is, or why they should use it. So in case, again, giving the example of toilets we have been constructing, but very few people used it because they did not feel that it is our need, or they did not prioritize toilet as a need. But we knew that because of that, many diseases spread, like because of E. coli bacteria, like diarrhea is one of the major issues in India has been. So we know the science as a practitioner or as students of TISS, but communities do not have that perspective, and they do not have the perspective of that negative impact which is going to be caused because of not using toilets. So this is how it is. So we have to make the community understand how, like, create the demand for a given program, and then only you cannot, the way in TISSian language we say, it should be participatory. Like, what community needs should be identified, and in that context you have to work with the community to make them adopt, or make them realize this is important. The way it should be adopted, it should be then it will be the onus of the community how they want to adopt it. So the entire reason about talking about this behavioral change aspect is because it's becoming a buzzword, along with another buzzword called as data driven governance, which in my experience I found is another crucial topic that I should shed light on. So at ministry, when I was working, I realized these two very important things, especially data driven governance, because as we know, as a student, how data is important, how much it is important, not only for our research work, but why it is important is to know from yesterday how much far we have fared, or better we have fared as compared to yesterday. So where are we heading? So if you don't have data, you cannot compare it, numerical data. So that is another aspect which I worked when I was working at the central level. And it is very huge, and there are lots of lacuna, and it is like debatable issue, like how you collect the data, what reporting goes in, and what the MIS, management information system portals of government shows, then what census shows, and then what we read in the reports. So it's all a debatable issue, but at least somewhere you have to start, somewhere you have to have that data. And these are some of the areas where I worked in terms of knowledge management, then data analysis when I was working at the government. And the support which I provided was largely, in terms of implementation, was largely about designing the program. Like, how do you want to go ahead if you are designing a program within government, or for that matter, any other organization. These were some of the experiences. And as in my present capacity, I'm working at the Tata Trusts, and the role is, again, it's a macro level role, but I also uh, got a chance to engage with a lot of communities across India. My role is to anchor integrated wash initiatives. It includes drinking water schemes. It includes sanitation coverage improvement, includes menstrual hygiene management, and many other things which fall under wash. And on contrary, or I also look after some of the water conservation programs at Tata Trust. So how different it is working from working within a government system. So as we know, government system is a very rigid system wherein the bureaucratic setup is fixed. These are the things. This is the hierarchy. In when you come to a organization like Tata Trust or any other philanthropic or development organization, uh, there 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 the ecosystem is more professional in terms of adopting to newer technologies. Adaptability is very high. You have to constantly think about new innovations, because in government all the processes are very very slow, especially even if you want to buy one set of books, you have to go through the procurement process in government. So private sector or in NGOs, development organizations also, you have to follow these processes, but these are quite fast. So these are just operational aspects. I just wanted to talk because these are very important in terms of achieving some change, because these are the back end of it. Because in TISS we learn a lot about the core data and theories, but when you enter the field and you enter into the practice profession, not the research profession, you tend to do a lot of work in these operational aspects. Secondly, one more thing I would like to highlight here is the interface between academia and the practitioners. There has been a lot of debate, like especially in context of India or South Asian countries. Uh, I won't call it a rift, but there has been always a contestation that academicians say that practitioners do not necessarily follow the scientific approaches, and vice versa. Practitioners feel that researchers just do the analysis and conclusion part, but they don't give actionable inputs to practitioners. So there has always been this case in India in major in many spaces you see. I'm not saying there is not good interface between practitioners and academia, but there is some kind of silo or watertight compartment that has happened. There are many platforms where they do come together on the same table and they discuss, but what happens is when both the sets of people, they have different agendas, because a researcher has to deliver some kind of study related, research related work, and a practitioner has a very tight project cycle. He has to deliver a project. So obviously baseline survey impact is a part of a project, but that is not his only priority as a practitioner. Same goes with the researcher. He has some tight deadline, but that is related to research. And then when they come together on the same platform, they try to further their own interest. Researcher will talk more about how did you do the baseline, how's, and what kind of methodology did you pick up. And practitioner, for him, baseline survey or impact assessment is a part of the project, a smaller part we can say. For him, the core is like doing procurement, delivering the scheme, delivering the program with the community. So there are a number of things, and that's how there is a clash, that because of these different priorities. And why I'm talking about these priorities, because when you enter your career, if you are a fresher, you will get to realize that you have to deal with these different organizations, in terms of academia, in terms of if you are dealing, even if you are working in an NGO, you will have to interface with the government while taking permissions or doing a conjoint program with the government. If you are working as a researcher, you will have to approach government in terms of taking their interviews, asking them for time. Or if you are on board on a government committee, or let's say you're working on a government project to assess impact of something, of some X project, then again you have to interface with the government. So these are the experiences which are cutting across, like even if you're working in an NGO, with the government, outside government, or as a researcher, these come handy. So moving on to challenges involved, very quickly I would, as in the interest of time, I'll just give you short snapshot of the challenges. So in my present role at Tata Trust, we have some criteria that we work on. We work on 70 to 80% of aspirational districts. So as the districts which are lagging behind on top 5 development indicators prescribed by Niti Aayog. So these are very challenging districts. Some of them are LWE, left-wing extremism affected districts, and some are non-LWE, but they are very lagging behind on the development parameters. So working in these areas is obviously quite a challenge because firstly, there are lots of development issues. There is no network in terms of mobile network, and also road connectivity is an issue. Then all the infrastructure, for that matter, you take education, water, anything you take, it's not so developed as compared to other districts. So creating your footprint becomes a very difficult part of it. And if you are new over there, you have to do a lot of work from scratch, like start from the beginning. So that is one of the challenge. And another set of challenges, like when we come from TISS, we have certain understanding of the science, that how things work in this way. We have a certain understanding of logical flow. Okay, again, taking an example of wash, there is this flow chart of fecal oral transmission, how the fecal matter or the coliform bacteria gets transmitted to our body, okay, through our oral mode. So this fecal oral transmission we know through learnings from our at TISS Tulzapur, if you are doing a diploma on wash. So we know that, but how do you translate that into the common language to the common people is one of the challenge. So there, that we don't learn at TISS. We learn that from experiences, by attending some seminars, by attending some sessions on exchanging ideas of different NGOs. So I would suggest if you could, attend more such webinars not on theoretical part, but if there is some experience sharing that is happening from a practitioner or a researcher, try to attend that, try to see how they tackle those kind of challenges. So these are some mundane challenges. They might sound like mundane or routine challenges, but these are the very challenges, at every step, which will bother you, like how to overcome them. So this is how the background of TISS, like moving the community, then immersing with the community, that is going to help you a lot. So from the challenges part, I will quickly move on to skill sets, which is very important, I think. So most of you might be eagerly waiting to hear this part, what skill sets are applicable, and what are not, what should we focus on. So basically, we all know that we have to have a knack at all the MS Office packages like Excel, Microsoft Word, etc. So these are the very basic things. We think that we know all the basics of it, but that is not the actual thing. When we enter our professional career, and when we actually start applying that on a very rigorous or on a very frequent manner, we understand that there are many small things within the Word as a software itself, that we did not know previously. Like if while at TISS you are doing, let's say, one alignment, you are changing the alignment of the draft, you think this is the best possible way to do it. But when you start working, you from your colleagues maybe, or through your self learning from YouTube or any other courses, you get to know that there are very faster ways to do the same thing. So these are some of the skill sets that are required, and especially in terms of Excel. So as we work on research part, and when we enter into as a practitioner, we enter into this ecosystem of NGOs or development organizations. Excel is another tool that you have to master, because you can do wonders with that app, Excel or SPSS. SPSS for researchers. So these skill sets are the basic most skill set. If you can master them, that is more than enough. But yeah, so how to do that? We think when we are doing assignment, so our topmost priority is completing our assignment at this. So you can try to do, when you are doing research, you can try to make the most use of all these softwares. So Word, though, you all are going to use anyways for writing your assignments and thesis. but try to see how you can work a lot on more on quantitative data using Excel. Because what we think is chalo yaar aaj I don't use pivot table, I will use it later on, maybe when I do my dissertation. But don't do that. Try to use it in your assignments as well. If you are going to show some data, try to convert that table into a form of infographic, into a line chart, or a bar chart. Try to play with the data in terms of infographics. These are representing data in a nutshell is another skill which is very much required. You join any private company, NGO, or development sector, this is very, very much required. So try to incorporate these tools in your daily routine at TISS or whatever course that you are doing, and don't try to procrastinate on it, because what happens is then the final stage comes and you have to take up a job, and then whatever your colleagues are doing in 15 minutes, you keep on doing it for 1 hour to 1 or 2 hours. So I'm not saying be very competitive, but you will get an upper hand, and once you get used to it, it will be very beneficial for you, and you will start focusing on the actual work and not the functional aspects of these tools. Okay, so I just want to tell you that just try to be ahead in terms of usage of tools. Another tools, some other sets of tools are GIS if you are more into spatial analysis, which many of us at urban policy students, climate change students, they have to use it. But even if you are a social work student or any other student, try to explore these basic GIS softwares. QGIS is one of the open source software which you could use. It is very handy to represent spatial data, because let's say there are 12 states you want to work on, and there is a lot of data about 12 states on nutrition. So nutrition linked to wash. So how do you represent that? You represent it in bar chart, but then you go on explaining, okay, but if you want to represent the same data to an external person who is not familiar to Indian context, where is Maharashtra, where is Odisha, where is West Bengal, he doesn't know that. You want to show it in chart, the same data points, then you can put it on through GIS, you can put it on maps, and even you can show the granular data if you have those maps available on GIS. Similarly, there is advanced part of GIS where you can do a kind of modeling if you are into hydrogeological modeling. If you want to show rivers, if you want to see how the drainage channels of a villages are, if you are planning doing a kind of watershed mapping of a village, and you want to show the drainage channels, you may not get a ready map available. Even some of the government departments do not have it. Using this GIS software and satellite maps, you can easily do it. So this is the advanced part, but basic if you can learn about it. So that's it on skill sets. And yeah, a short part on soft skills. I'll just take 1 more minute, and then we can move on to question and answer session and make it a more kind of conversation. Soft skills about how do you represent when you are in organization. Like we all know that formalities and all are there, but in terms of when you are approaching a government person, how to deal with them, because they have a different perspective, because we all know government works on papers. So for example, you are interfacing you are in an organization which is a development organization or an NGO, and you want to collaborate with another NGO. So mail to mail communication might work. But at the same time, if you are approaching a government person, they might expect a letter from you on the letterhead. So these are some of the basic soft skills. And then how to build an informal rapport with the government representative is another soft skill, because it is considered as a soft skill in our sector, because we have to do a lot of permission seeking from them in terms of project. Neither it may not be useful at the initial stages, but after let's say 2 years of your professional experience, you will definitely need to work on that also. So there are many soft skills which you will pick up. I won't talk about it much because it's a kind of self-learning that happens during the course of your career. So I think so. I'll just open it up, and we can take up questions or kind of get into a conversation mode.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Abhishek, for this wonderful and comprehensive, perspective of not just, I guess, about WASH programs, but about, you can say, as the topic says, development and how to deal with the governance mechanism. It was a kind of a very interesting session. Before we can go to the participants, there is one question that is asked by on the Google Forms. It says that what is the kind of your experiences with the community, if you have had any water conservation projects, and how did you deal with the community regarding those water conservation projects?
Okay. So there is something called as community capacity building or training communities on whatever program that you're working. And specific to water conservation, so in India, in different states, we have some provisions on water user groups or what village water sanitation committee, which is a subcommittee of Gram Panchayat. So these provisions are already there. So what we can do is, firstly, we can approach the Gram Panchayat and see if that committee is functional or not. Usually what happens, it is there on paper, because to get the funds, you have to, anyways, you have to show that it is there existing in the village. But when you go to the village, you find that it is not functioning or meetings are not happening frequently. So first of all, trying to work with whatever is there existing there in the village or on the paper, try to get those people on board, then sensitize them about the issue. We all in sanitation language, we call it triggering people to, take action. So similarly, in water conservation, if you know about this Water Cup or Satyameva Jayate Water Cup, which was run by Amir Khan, they had run this campaign to trigger an action among the community. They use this. Uh, they use different tools in it. They use a model watershed. They used a water budgeting as a tool, wherein they did village water budgeting. How much rainfall do we get, and how much is expended or water is used for agriculture purpose, domestic purpose. And similarly, the way we do our own household level budget, how much income we get and how much expenditure is there, we do water budget, and at the end we get to know whether the village is a water deficit village or a water surplus village. And if in most of the cases we find water deficit villages, and then we, community themselves realize, oh, we are using a lot of water for agriculture. uh, then we might work on, on efficient usage or efficient practices on irrigation. Let's say adopt micro irrigation tools, micro irrigation like drip irrigation, or maybe work on your cropping pattern. Let's take up some more water efficient crops like orchards or some other crops which are alternatives to water intensive crops. So this is how you can work. This is a kind of demand side, and on supply sides, we have been conventionally working on small and minor building of small and minor dams at village level, or desilting the dams. This is the conventional supply side way. So this is it. Strengthening the community is important. Building the institutions is important, because once you exit, you are going to hand over the project to them. Yeah.
Yes, great. Yeah, thank you for that understanding. And so I think we can open the platform for participants.
Yeah.
So if anyone of any of them can want to ask something, they can unmute and ask.
So I deliberately have left some of the topics or haven't covered them. I expect if we can, ask questions. Any question if you think which
Yeah,
is linked to what I spoke, or if you have otherwise any question.
sure. So participants, if you have any questions, you are most welcome to unmute and ask. So I think maybe they don't have questions right now, but some I have a kind of a question in that sense that, so working with an NGO and then working with the government. So as you said, there are two different things. Okay, there are two different skills and perspectives also sometimes, and practice also. So when we talk about TISS, so there are some values that we imbibe or we learn at TISS. apart from the scientific knowledge or the community knowledge, there are values also that we want to have, in the sense of, let us just for example, gender, or or let us say in the sense of children, in the sense of caste, values, and class values, and so what do you say about when we are working with the government as well as with trusts like NGOs like Tata Trust? Maybe there may be sometimes conflicts, or maybe some what you can say, we need to negotiate or channelize those values. So any experiences or anything, if you think you can share?
Yeah, so not necessarily an experience as a part of my career, but some of the experiences I heard from when I attended some other sessions. Definitely, there comes a time when you have to think about or negotiate about these values. Okay, so we come with a lot of learnings from, in fact, de-learning from TISS, and learn a lot of value systems in terms of equity, etc. So how to maintain that, how to ensure that? So first of all, I will talk about government. So in government, any scheme that is designed, it is designed as per the provisions, that is requirement, or the special provisions which are there for the vulnerable communities. So any subsidy, any incentive that is attached to a scheme, it has these provisions. What happens is, at the bottom, when the fund flows and when it is actually implemented, that time there arises a question whether it is getting implemented properly or not, or the vulnerable community, they are getting those provided shares or not. Okay, so at that time, as a practitioner, what you can do, you can ensure that those schemes, because a lot of working is required at the bottom. Top, we have elaborate plans, everything, etc. is there, but at bottom, when you are working, you have to see to it that monitoring is proper, whether there is a mention of X number of households are belonging to ST category, and there is a huge requirement of, let's say, toilet is not present there. So you have to ensure actually that infrastructure is reaching there, and sometimes you need to give a special focus when you are planning on that. So another example I would like to give in terms of is water tariff setting. So as we move on to drinking water schemes which are designed by the community with community participation, and their operation maintenance is again run by the community. So in that, you have to ensure the committee that you establish to run those water supply systems, there is a proper representation of vulnerable communities. That is there on the paper, but what we see is that people do co-opt the dominant caste in a village. They do co-opt people from other community. The community, they want the people to be on the board. Okay, so we have to see that that doesn't happen. Even if that happens, there should be certain mechanism. In terms of water tariff, you can plan for cross subsidization in terms of the tariff that is levied for a X person who is owning, let's say, X amount of land. The same tariff may not be applied to the Y person who is vulnerable and does not own that much amount of land. Or even if it is not linked to land, you can link it to the another attribute. If it is a ST or below poverty line person, that household may be given some concessions. So in plan, when you make, you have to consider these unit costs accordingly and these units accordingly. Yeah.
Like, it's a very wonderful and a very technical approach to not only negotiating values, but even I personally find it very interesting when you said about designing in a way that there is no scope of what you can say, dominance group, eh, running it out of the control of the, or not able to get the objectives. So that is a very kind of a unique perspective where you can design the projects in a way that it doesn't get into those conflicts, as well as we have the objectives that we intend to. Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for this answer. And there is another uh, uh, a question which says, while choosing internship, what are the steps which we have to take? Okay, so I would like frame it into a sense that it is relevant for the senior batch also, I guess, that
Yeah.
this internship, uh, is a very kind of a unique aspect, or a very kind of a what you can say aspect that boosts your career into some direction uh, compared to those who do not do internships. So what are your perspective on if anyone wants to do internship in the sector you are working in, or let us say with Tata Trust or with the
Mhm.
government or with the community in the sense of WASH programs
Mhm.
or the NGOs who are working for WASH? So how can they approach and what can be their perspective?
Okay, so you know, whichever sector you want to intern with, firstly, you should have a strong connect with your network. I don't say that if you are a new student, obviously you are not going to be a part of that network. You have to build on it. You have to reach out to as many as people as possible. Don't be very self-conscious that what the other person or that organization will think about me. I'm a fresher. I'm not going to get it. Firstly, be confident about yourself. You know yourself better than others. So you know what all skill sets do you have as a even as a fresher if you don't have any experience, but you definitely do have some basic skill sets. You know how to use Word, how to use basic Excel. Okay, and also you something different like participatory planning, if you can talk about, like at TISS you learn in the initial semesters, you can talk about that. If you want to work on with communities or the community institutions, you can say that you have that knack or that skill that you want to test as an intern. So while approaching, you don't think about don't lower your own self-esteem, don't feel less confident about yourself. So that is first thing, and then try approaching as many as organizations possible, because I know that for us internship is a very time bound thing, and sometimes we, in that haste we do get placed into some other organization which we are not willing to. So that might happen in many of the cases. But you try to reach out to your seniors, you try to reach out to the existing network of your courses, because that is the best way to go about it. You get to know what is the world of your sector, and then you start hitting at the targets. So start applying, in short. So network is firstly important, and then you yourself, outside the network, you also go try applying, because you never know, within the network there are some set of organizations, maybe there are new organizations which have come up which then your existing network of TISS alumni doesn't know. So that's why you also take a kind of self initiative in exploring. Try to be a part of many national international forums. Don't feel hesitated. I am a fresher, would they accept me or not? Okay, every person is unique, they have their own experiences and perspectives. So every person is useful for any organization. So think it that way, and don't think about brands. Okay, this is a very big organization, I'm not getting. See, I started my internship because internship was a very crucial part. I would like to speak more about it. I interned with this organization called SOPECOM, Society for Participatory Ecosystems and Planning, something like that, SOPECOM. Okay, and they have this water conflict forum. So SOPECOM is not a very big organization, not a big organization like Reliance Foundation, Tata Trust. It's a very small NGO. But and the founder is also a ex-TCN of a very previous batch. So, but the values and the work that they are doing, I thought that it is on lines of what I want to do. And later on, I took the same topic as a part of my dissertation. So some of the part of my dissertation, in fact, I could do it as a part of my internship. So kind of, do smart work. If you are interning somewhere, try to, it's not bound to happen that you do some internship in some topic and the same topic is going to be a part of your dissertation, because choosing dissertation topic is again back and forth. But try to take up internship which will give a kind of leverage for your dissertation as well as building your skills. So don't think about the brand, think about the people who are working there, the philosophy of that organization, even if that organization is new or small. So what you want to get out of it is the biggest question, and what are your interests are.
Yeah, absolutely. About this interest and purpose, and this is a very needed advice, I guess, that they need to focus on not just the brand value, but the work value or the purpose or the mission about the organization.
One
Thank you.
more thing I would like to
Yeah.
add. So sometimes we get carried away with the bigger names, or if there is a internship with, let's say, X department of government. Okay, so we think it's a very big thing to work with the government, but what happens is, when you are interning, you are like a uh, unpolished diamond. So you need a kind of very close guidance and support from some senior when you are working in that organization. It can so happen that in bigger organizations, these organizations are very big and fast moving. There may to people working over there may not have time to interact with you a lot, because I've seen, because we also host a lot many interns in big organizations. So that is the disadvantage. Okay, so that's why you have to be very smart in picking, seeing to it that there should be some, if not all, but some people who can handhold you if you are a fresher. Some people who can give you time, and if that person is a very senior person, then nothing like it. So try to find such organizations, even though, that's why I'm saying, even if the organization is small, don't hesitate to go for it. Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for this. And just continuing this internship part, do you accommodate interns in your work profile or in your
Yeah. So
yeah.
see, there are, just to talk about very briefly about the Tata Trust ecosystem. So there are different portfolios or themes within Tata Trust, and every year TCNs I've seen they do intern with Tata Trust. But as I said, in bigger organization, the scope of work is very, to define that for interns is very difficult, because these are very professional and they are very fast moving organizations, because at a given point in time there are lot many projects happening. And this is something like where we talk about research. Okay, and where organizations are more about grant making, or they are more about implementing projects. TCNs may not fit in that 1 month time frame, or not only TCNs but
Mhm.
students at large. So what happens is, from organizations perspective, what they want from students who are interning is that they want the existing part of the existing project to be delivered that intern by that intern. Okay, so in case of bigger organization, such identifying such tasks gets difficult, because since it's a fast moving organizations, and most of the programs are very big at scalar level, and the kind
Mhm.
of skill set that is required, that may not match with the internship requirement. Okay, so Tata Trusts do provide
Mhm.
offer internships, but they are very limited to their own portfolios. Like in water, we offer sometimes every year we offer at least two internships. So that depends, but that is not specific to TISS only. We try to get to connect with courses which are offered on water across India, not only TISS. Let's say there is Shiv Nadar University, they also have a water course. Then many IITs do offer course on water. So that is how organizations think. But yeah, definitely there is a opportunity to work with Tata Trusts and Inter.
Okay, great, great. So I think yeah, and also this point about working for a month, and then even big organizations not having the time to invest for an intern who is anyways going to go out in 4 weeks. Uh, so maybe they just give data collection work or just the desk work, or just the work that is just a certificate based work. So in Tata Trust, do they have 1 month or more than that internships?
So yeah, there are different designs of internships which can be designed. Now that depends on mutual things, like
Okay.
availability of time the interns have, because at TISS we have a very short window of 2 months, I assume. In the mid, I think so, maybe after third semester, some courses are even go for internships after first semester. So that time frame is, I think so, limited to 2 months. In 2 months time period, yes, definitely you can do a kind of short-term assessment of some cluster of villages or whatever geography that is mutually decided. So that is, obviously that is feasible, but again, I would suggest try to take at least give output as a in form of a report, like at least cover a issue in an entirety. Okay, so if you are working with a professional organization or a CSR foundation, there you may not get that opportunity to do a kind of research work. If there is an impact assessment project going on, or there is a research related project going on, I think so that is more in lines of what students do at TISS. That's why it is not essential that you want to do a career in CSR or consulting, but you again want to do internship in the same thing. That may not happen, but certainly see, when we are learning something at TISS, it is more about research. It is a very focus on the analytical and critical part of various issues at hand. So I think so in taking internship on lines of the same pedagogy that TISS belongs to, it is sometimes helpful. What happens is, definitely you can go for an internship on in CSR or foundations or any private company also, if you want to learn more about some corporate skill sets, but then you won't get that value what TISS expects, okay, in your dissertation thesis or things like. So if you want to achieve that analytical skill set, you go for some organization which are doing impact assessment. Even if they are private companies, that is fine. But that will give you, and you do internship, you try to complete the entire value chain of that topic. Don't just, be a data collector there, collect data and ho gaya bas. So don't do that. Yeah.
So thank you so much for the different perspectives. Any participants want to ask a question? We can, and otherwise we can conclude the session. Yeah.
You can be okay with Hindi also. I can understand and speak Hindi.
Yes.
So
Yes.
be comfortable.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Abhishek. So,
Hi, Amrita.
yeah, so you spoke about the center-state relation
Yeah.
in terms of the water policies. So, in few literature review, I studied that center is actually playing a role of or carrying the approach that center knows the better, and it's kind of a backdoor entry for the center to actually rule on the state also. So, what are your thoughts, or as per your experience, as you have worked in SBM also? So I just wanted to know what are your thoughts on that lines?
See, definitely, Amruta and others also who would like to know about this. There is this strategic, political and strategic thing that keeps on going on. Everybody wants to, become a decision maker, especially in cases where there is a conflict on terms of center and state subjects when it comes to our constitutional provisions, and also otherwise. So as Amruta rightly said, sometimes it so happens that center wants to implement a policy in an X manner or in an X mode, and state is not willing to do that because of many reasons. Maybe the government is different at state. So we have faced a lot of issues in there where there was not the same party government at the state level. Some states, they did actually cooperate with us, some did not cooperate with us. Some states were way ahead in terms of achievement, so they did not feel that sanitation is their topmost priority. Some states were lagging behind, but they were slow. I think so their pace was slow, and they weren't able to achieve a pace even at the later phases of the Swachh Bharat mission. But that doesn't mean that they weren't committed to their work. They were more about focusing on the quality, like whatever you are doing, you should actually achieve it, not just show on the papers. So that was one thing. Talking about in terms of water, in terms of water sector also, now we know that interstate river sharing is one of the major disputed areas in India, which is again a state subject. So what happens is, a state which is on the upstream area or the upper riparian state of a river, they bound to tap water for their own usages, like building barrages and dams and not letting water adequate amount of water flow to the states which are located on the downstream area. So that now this subject is a state subject. So every state will say, we are a deficit state, we don't want the water to let go off to the downstream states. And what power does center has in concurrent list? They can form tribunals. So beyond tribunals, center is, they don't have actually much say in terms of interstate water dispute. And there is a constant push from center that this topic should come to from concurrent list, it should come to center, because center has a macro view of things. At the same time, the same center talks about community participation, decentralization, etc. So there are two perspectives to decentralization, or devolving power to state, or below state. So one perspective is that especially the grassroots, they do not have the scientific approach or know-how. So we need to build that scientific approach, and that is why center is a kind of guiding. Now this is a very centralized approach. The other approach, we obviously know that issues are very context specific, and that is why they have to dealt in that way. They have to be dealt in that way, and people who are actually going to be the end users of any policy, they have to be a part of the planning. So this is another perspective, and in each of both of these perspectives, there is always a tussle. Every time center will say that this is the right way, states will say that what we do is the right way. That is bound to happen. Again, in case of Swachh Bharat mission, as I said, what was driving states to follow what center is asking for or to do. So see, centers goals were in line with SDGs, and the only carrot, or we can say incentive that center was providing was that central share of fund which gets disbursed after the budget. Okay, so states, for in order to get those monies, they have to follow or adhere to the central guidelines. So this kind of tussle of power, it always happens. Center keeps on showing the carrot of budgets, and states, in order to get that, they have to anyways adhere. If they don't want that share of budget, they may not be a part of what center wants or what center wishes to do. So that is, again, obviously that is going to happen, and it has been happening in all the sectors, not only in water sector. But water is one of the most contested issues, because it is also a big electoral issue in villages across India. So it is like a backbone of your routine daily life, human life, and also backbone of industrialization. So wherever you want to set up industries, you have to have water. So who controls water is again a question, and everybody wants to control water. So if we want to speak in that terms, that tussle is bound to happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Understood.
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, sir. And I guess so. Now we can conclude the session if participants don't have any questions. And
Yeah.
so, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to thank you, sir, about the perspectives and experiences and the journey that you shared. And it was so comprehensive as well as so holistic that we did not only cover the governance mechanisms, but as our topic says, development mechanisms from the community perspective, from the TISS perspective, and even the internship things and many other what you can say organizational perspectives. And thank you so much for your time, and we are glad to have you here. Always be in touch. So we'll be in touch for more sessions also, and any opportunity you come across, you can always share with me or the MyTISS team, so that we can forward it to the TISS students, so that they can progress in their careers through your reference. And it was a very great and a pleasure for us to have you, sir. And thank you so much, and thank you participants too for your patience as well as for your time and for your questions, that we had this interesting engaging session. Stay tuned to mytiss.com. We will upload this video on our YouTube channel as well. And yeah, be in touch, be in connect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks all for joining. It was wonderful interacting with you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.